Not showing the... It's not showing the image. Hold on, people. Everybody buckle up. I have to fix it. OC Remix is up, but normal screen is not up. Hey, look at that. Hey, there's all my normal things. Oh, where had they gone? Alright, then there's the title timer. There's the common. No. Live sound. Code screen. Okay, code screen is under preview. Okay, so basically I just uncheck show cursor and recheck show cursor, and that will bring it back. There we go. Okay. So, the goal is to get this to do WebAuthn. And I think that WebAuthn is probably far more complicated than what I understand right now. But we're just going to get to a basic, something pops up and it does a thing. That's the goal. And here we go. Okay, so as a genius web dev, I'm going to show you how it's done. I have no idea what I'm doing. Well, I've been thinking about it. I've been thirsting about it too. Oh, that's so good. So what we're going to need here is a caddy file. We're actually going to go full on. This is one of the dev domains I have. We're going to do TLS internal. I'm actually going to copy the caddy file from a private repo. PaperOS Lab SSO front end. There's a caddy file right in here that's going to do our bidding. So I need to have actual HTTPS, I think, for this thing to even work at all. So we're going to do it like this. And yeah, that's how we're going to do it. So do I have another tab? No, I don't even have another tab. So let's open up another tab. Let's get into the same project directory. How's everybody doing tonight? Not doing it all? Everybody's asleep? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. You want to sleep away your life? Who am I to tell you not to? All I'm saying is that I'm living my life. Okay? And then, what are we doing here? Nothing. All right, so let's just refresh. We need to get to local.paperos.dev. All right, good. There we are. And then, all right, so we've got some stuff here, but we're not getting the WebAuthn whatchamadoodles. I'm going to go dive in a little bit to this repository. So there's this WebAuthn local client repository. This is what I'm interested in, because I'm interested in self-sovereign identities, meaning that you own your own identity, that your identity is primarily managed by you. So we're going to go into the source. We're going to go into WALC, which stands for WebAuthn Local Client. WALC, get it? Got it? Good. Now I'm hoping that we're not actually going to have to use any of these three. This one, it turns out, I wrote that. Gitify and I have had some interactions over the years. I think that he actually came to this because someone else was using it for... I think the person who wrote the CBOR library also was using my ASN1 library. And so I think that's how that came about. Oh, I wish there was like 100 more Mountain Dews I could drink. I'm so addicted to that stuff. And it sounds like I'm joking, but I don't think I'm joking. All right, so public key algorithms. Let's see, where's this at? Public key algorithms. Look up. I wish that, yeah. Oh, okay, that is a map. I wish people would use const and function and all that correctly. Like only using const for constants. For example, that looks like it's a constant. But I also wish we could just get rid of that and just do it. If it's all caps, it's a constant. I think there's a lot of value in that. Okay, supports WebAuthn. Is user verifying platform authentication available? Let me find out what this is. Is conditional mediation available? So I think we'd want to not do that. I think that's the number one thing that we need from this. See, only available in secure context. Now, sometimes they let you do that over localhost. Sometimes they don't. Because sometimes they're like, just, do it. By the way, if you're not using Caddy, you should use Caddy. Did you see how easy that was to have an authenticated local certificate? So if we go back here. Okay. This was the command I ran. Let me show you my Caddy file. This is my Caddy file. So local.paperos.dev is set up via DNS to point to 127.0.0.1. I could just as well edit my localhost file to do that. So you could make up any domain you wanted pretty much and just put it in your host file. You can do that. And it's got HTTPS, and you notice there's no lock issues here. It is valid HTTPS. And I didn't have to do anything. Don't need API keys. What it does is it goes into the system key store. He's got it so that no matter whether you're on Windows, Mac, or Linux, it will connect to the operating system key store. It'll ask you to put a temporary authority into your OS keychain for these domains. macOS is actually really smart with this stuff. I love to hate them too, but they've got some really good ways of doing things. Let's see what happens if we click login. Please fill out this field. Sure. Password is for nonces, ponces. Meh. Alright, so we got nothing. Okay. That all makes sense. I'm okay with all of that. So what it's saying is you didn't provide the required options. So no cookie for you. And I'm okay with that. That's fair. I don't know what I'm doing. I did the wrong thing. Oh, by the way, this boilerplate, I just asked GPT to generate the boilerplate. I didn't have any illusions. I just asked GPT to generate it. Now, let's see. Challenge bytes. Public key. Get public key. Let's see what it's saying. Failed to read the public key property from public key credential descriptor. I wonder if this is public key credential descriptor. Let me go look at the actual documentation for this. What are the things we pass into it? What does prevent silent access? Okay, I'm going to jump around a little bit because I'm just learning here. Look at that. WebView on Android supports it too. Hallelujah. We are going to have to be careful about WebView on Android. That's the one thing. And they don't say WebView on iOS, and that makes me sad because that actually is kind of important. Yeah, I don't have enough context to understand this yet. All right, let's go back to, was this the one I was actually, okay, I'm interested in this one. I want to know what gets passed into it. Options. Options are mediation, conditional, and a non-modal dialogue. Okay, I'm going to read this out loud. If credentials can be handed over for a given operation without user mediation, how are we defining user mediation? Does that mean that the user is the person making the decisions? They will be enabling automatic reauthentication without user mediation. Okay. So if we can just hand the credentials back. So, okay, so this is the sign in versus sign out. Okay, let me go back to conditional. Discovered credentials are presented to the user in a non-modal dialog box. Now, what does non-modal dialog box mean? Because that sounds like something that I could skip past if I wanted to. In practice, this means autofilling available credentials. Okay. Yeah, this is what I want to do. This is the first part of what I want to do. As soon as the user lands on the front end, it requests a challenge from the back end with passkeys and calls navigator.credentials.get to initiate authenticating with a passkey. This returns a promise. Okay, so I'm getting a sense. Okay. Okay. So this is very, very asynchronous. This is very disjointed. So you're saying, I want to get some credentials. And then you're going to provide the user with options. It's disjointed in a good way. Oftentimes, if you say something's disjointed, you mean that in a negative way. Has a clear separation of concerns. It's not like add event listener or on click. It sounds like this has got actually the kind of scope that I want. Essentially, this is it's a promisable event. So rather than an event emitter, you have a promise. You're going to set up some stuff, and if this can return, it will. Okay. When the user puts the cursor in the sign-in field, the browser displays a password autofill dialog, including passkeys, authentication logging, da 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 da. After the user verifies their identity, the promise is resolved. Okay, so the interesting thing about this, now this is starting to come together. So when you await navigator.credentials.get, it's just going to sit there. And if the user never logs in, then this never fires. If the user does log in, then it does fire. Now, I read that it doesn't have, it doesn't ever receive a, if you cancel, if you fail it on purpose, that this won't throw. It'll just sit and wait until there's success. I'm not sure if that's what I'm understanding from this. Okay. Front end sends public key credentials to the back end. Now, is this saying that's what the user agent does? No, front end meaning application in this case. All right. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's basically, I get that. Username, WebAuthn. Okay. I believe that all browsers support public key credential. Let's scroll down. Okay, WebView on Android is the only one that doesn't support it. Does WebView on Android support anything? No. Weird. So this flow is not for people with Android. All right, are there any? So Firefox has an asterisk. That's not good. That is not good. We have authenticator attachment. Everything supports authenticator attachment. So it looks like that's what we want to use. One of these two is what we want to use. And I think that Gitify was saying that they use attachment. Yeah, look at that. Request credential types challenge. Authenticator attachment. So I need to learn about this. Okay, that's a no-go. I do want to see, he responded to what I was asking about. Okay. Authenticator attachment. User handle retrieval. Discoverable passkeys. Resident key is set to required. This seems a little bit strange to me. I guess it makes sense, though. It almost seems like this would be a server header or something. But I don't know. I guess it's one of those things where the attack vectors are in such a way that it doesn't really end up mattering. Because it's weird that on the front end where, you know, well, I don't know actually. So let's say that you've got some advertiser running some script on the page. What prevents an advertiser running script on a page from being able to get the user's credentials? Okay, here's something I want to know. How is WebAuthn protected from third-party scripts? All right, Jippity, tell me the truth. But it doesn't. No. I mean, what if you load some framework code from a CDN and someone hijacks it? To steal credentials. I mean, I guess okay. This is actually a silly question. This is a first principles issue that I understand this well because I bring this up with people all the time. It's when something is unfamiliar or uncomfortable, we often skip over the things that we know to be true. So, for example, I was having a debate. I've had actually several debates around how IP addresses are less secure for all practical purposes than domain names. Primarily because once it's compromised, there's nothing you can do about it. If there's some sort of compromise, let's say particularly a political compromise, you can legally move a domain somewhere else. You can't legally move your IP address. So you're bound to a physical instance with an IP address, whereas you're bound to a virtual instance with a domain name and some other reasons, but domains are more secure because you have more control over it, or at least they can be more secure. Also, it's easier to get TLS certificates, yada, yada, yada. But when you're not thinking about it, you think, oh, the IP address is more secure because GoDaddy can't take it away from me. But what you don't think about is the IP address is less secure because AWS can take it away from you and there's nothing you can do about it. Like so if you need to restore a backup of a server somewhere else quickly because of a political conflict, I mean, that's just the thing these days, right? I mean, there's other reasons, but the political conflicts, all of the oh, you know, you said this, you did that, you looked the wrong way, you know, you did, somebody took a picture of you with your face scrunched in someone else's direction. You know, like, this is where people are losing their jobs and having their bank accounts frozen and all that sort of crap. And for the few people that aren't familiar with that, I don't know what to tell you, because there is kind of a, like, stick your head in the sand kind of thing where people just don't believe that that stuff's happening. But anyway, that doesn't matter. Point is, if we don't understand something or it's become innate, we tend to forget to be skeptical of it. Which is weird, because if something seems like magic, we forget to be skeptical of it. Anyway, point being that if some sort of third-party script gets access to the page, they can just prompt the user for their password. So it's not like you're losing against this. So same origin policy, I don't know what that means. Can't be used by any... Hunar! Long time no see. How you been? I don't even remember you. Well, I vaguely think I remember the username Hunar, but it's been a long time. What's up? This binding ensures credentials cannot be used by other domain. I don't know if this is true. I'm having a hard time believing this. But the credential is given to... Oh, okay. I think I know what's going on here. Maybe. We'll have to see. The question is how the signing takes place. So if the credential itself, if the private key is not exposed, it could still create a credential, but I kind of get what it's going. I was on your screenshot as a service live stream. Oh, okay. All right, so it's not been that long of a time. Because that one was, what, a week ago? Well, welcome back either way. Yeah, but what we don't have in the browser, which is a pity, because we have this in Mac OS, for example, and I think that maybe Secure Linux has something like this too. I think Windows, I do think Windows has this. But there's lots of system containerization where an application has to request permissions for a very specific thing, and the operating systems knows where applications came from. Everything has to be signed, and it runs with its signature, and according to its signature, it can access the things that it's allowed to access. And if the signature changes between updating from one version to another version, you actually have the issue where you have to re-enable permissions, and sometimes it gets confused. You have to turn the permissions off and re-enable them. And we don't have something like that for the browser, unless that's what sub-resource integrity is. Oh, okay. This is something we could definitely make use of. Oh, a 3-shot vodka drink. Your live stream and working on a remix web app. Living life. Bruh. You are living life. Cool. WebAuthn extensions and device attestation. You know, this is definitely the most complex protocol that I've dealt with in regards to authentication, and maybe period. There are so many components to WebAuthn. I think part of it's because it actually has evolved quite a lot over the years. Like the first 10 years that no one used it because it was garbage. And then now, when people use it because it does what they need it to do. But it's kind of like OpenID versus OpenID Connect. OpenID, it had, like, the core of the idea was good, but the implementation was terrible. And for a long time, I had a friend who was really excited about WebAuthn, and I thought, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. Well, now I see it and I believe it. I had been working on being able to do what I'm figuring out how to do right now for about a decade. I eventually gave up because what would happen is every time I got to the point where I was almost ready to release my authentication library and components, something would come down the pipe in regards to browser security, which is ultimately a good thing, but you know, they disabled iframes. I worked around that. They disabled cookies. Before they had disabled cookies, I had created something that was similar to the OIDC. It was almost identical in spirit, but all of my key names were different. So, like sub, PPID, audience. They've got 3 or 4 different fields in there to describe the interactions. The one of them's called the app. Okay. There's the audience is the server. Then there's something else that basically means the application. It's slipping my mind. The subject is the user. So then the thing that's the application, effectively the user agent, is one of those pieces. There's the issuer. The issuer is essentially who holds the private key, although that term gets muddled when you're talking about self-sovereign identity, because it's often referred to the server. It's actually not the server, it's whoever holds the private key, and the audience is the server, which is also often the back end of an application. Anyway, all that stuff. So I had pretty much come up with the identical thing, and then OIDC came out. And I thought, okay, well now there's a spec for it, and you know they're handling, they're doing what I want to do. Like they're meeting my need, and I don't want to just continue to create something that's just a little bit different in unimportant ways. And so I switched over to that. But anyway, through all those years of all of this browser trickery, it's just the browser got me every time. But now, the browser is supposedly my friend. It's going to help me. So we'll see. The relying party. Okay. So, the website. Is that the website? Is that the server or the app? Is that the front end or the back end? Because the website is not descriptive enough in this. All right. So, let's say attestation allows the front end to verify the hardware used for the authentication, ensuring that it is a trusted device. Does not directly prevent third-party script attacks. Yeah, it definitely doesn't. I'm like, why? How's that related? So CSP and SRI are probably the best bets. But I do wish we had something that was granular, like what you get with Android and Mac OS and stuff like that. And that's something that Douglas Crockford was suggesting ages ago. He was suggesting that back in, 2007? Maybe earlier? But he was on that path way back then, and he was right. Unfortunately, he and I were grumpy old men, so even though we're geniuses, it's hard for us to convince other people, and sometimes people really struggle with simplicity. I think I've come to understand that people struggle with simplicity more than complexity. It seems that the more someone is actually able to understand something, the less likely they are to agree with it, which is so weird. But people, they actually have a resistance to things that can be easily understood. And the idea that you keep a context for a file that's loaded, and that it has to have permission to go outside of that context. This does not require a degree in computer science to understand. I mean, maybe sometimes I speak with words that are a little too like endemic to the industry, but it's a sandbox. It's like the script from this file cannot access the memory of other scripts. And if it calls an API, it calls the API in a way that this script, this file, is separate from the other one. Now, there's obviously a lot of details that have to get worked out with that, especially when you consider bundlers and things like that. But, it's definitely, you can definitely say, okay, this JavaScript, we can trace this JavaScript came from this domain, this advertiser domain, and say this advertiser domain JavaScript is allowed to run, but it's only allowed to have permission to this node in the DOM. That's its scope. It's got from a Unix perspective, we call it a troot, or Docker is just a brand name for a Linux process group, or what are they called? Is it process group? Is that what it is? Docker is one of the strangest things. It's done really good in that it's helped advance the Linux process group technology, but Docker is 90% marketing, 9% UI tools, and then the other 99% that's just the 1% because it's just like Docker uses process groups. This is what Linux provides. Anyway. Okay, what's up, Mr. Marmalade? Sorry, I can't do it. Dr. Marm. That's what we're doing here. I was told if I don't talk with many buzzwords, I am not a good dev. Yeah, of course. How can you be a good dev if you don't talk with enough buzzwords? In fact, I had just opened an issue about this, which maybe is what you're referring to. Whoops. It's like Mo buzzwords, Mo beta. I just committed this 5 hours ago. Look, I added typed, AI, and better. And I added it in multiple places so that if you open up these files, you'll see typed and AI. That way you'll know I'm a good coder. How do you know he's a genius coder? Because it's typed and with AI. And I've got a disclaimer about some of the changes in this release and a disclaimer to the disclaimer. Because I didn't even read this disclaimer until after I'd written this one. React is a powerhouse for building dynamic, blazing fast UIs. Yeah. You read that yesterday from an LLM? You asked an LLM what's React? Leveraging virtual blah 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 blah. Oh yeah, that's why you need the buzzwords, man. How are you gonna be a good developer if you're not with hooks and unidirectional data flow, optimized state management, and buttery smooth user experience boundaries, leveraging virtual DOM blazing fast? Yeah. Buzzle Buzzler. Anyway, look, I can tell you and we're gonna get along or we're not. I can tell that. I can tell either we are or we aren't. And we don't know yet, and we might not ever know, but I can tell. And so with that in mind, I'm going to share with you this amazing project. You will not need React ever again. And check this out. This has got micro benchmarks. Where's React? It's sitting at this little elbow. Where's AJ query? It's over 9,000. That's right. So, and it's compatible. Oh, whoops. I said ECMAScript 3. That actually needs to be updated to ECMAScript like 6 or something. Because one of the commits use default parameters to break compatibility with older browsers. So that's one of the goals of the new release. Because we want to make sure that when we release new code that it just breaks stuff. You know? Like if you've got the option to break something or to let it work, you want to make sure your new release always breaks something. So that's what I did with this release of AJ Query. And I can show you. Actually, here's the thing though. I don't think that anybody's actually using browsers where this would have an effect because this is so old in of itself that it wouldn't actually break anything. But I'm using a default parameter, whereas before I had an if statement there. That's what it is. See? Oh, there's ads. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I forget about that. I use this thing called the Brave browser, and so I forget that ads exist. I'm pirating the seas of the interwebs with Brave. I'm bravely pirating the seas of the interwebs. Anyway, so AJ query, there you go. But actually, in all honesty, this actually is a good thing. And I did add types to it. I did also export it as MJS. I did also export it as CommonJS. But in this particular case, since the lines of the file are like there's more boilerplate than there is code by just a few lines, but like there's the lines of code 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 versus the lines of boilerplate. You know, if we don't count comments 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, they're identical. But then there's some of the stuff has to be part of the boilerplate, like this TS ignore has to be part of the boilerplate. So even though I'm going to discount the actual documentation, I actually am going to count the TS ignore. So that pushes us over the limit to 11. Takes it to 11. Oh, a Michael Jackson script. Now MJS is just what they call the ESM. So MJS is ESM. It's ECMAScript. So, yeah. Yeah, it stands for Module JS, where CJS is Common JS, and then JS is, just works in the browser. Don't worry about it. Ain't no thing. But yeah, because now we have 3 different types of JavaScript, and people just want to pretend like the original JavaScript doesn't exist. Like the JavaScript that still works today, that doesn't require a transpiler, that works in every browser, that, just like works everywhere. They just, they want to pretend like it doesn't exist. Anyway, this is copy pasta. This is like, you come in here, you grab these functions, you copy them, and you're off to the races, and you'll never need React again. If you keep watching, I'm going to be building some front-end applications. I don't do front-end, but I do engineering, and that's why I'm able to do front-end. I make it nice and ugly, like what we're going to see here, but it ends up being all okay. So anyway, where are we at? So yeah, this didn't really help me, but I think that what I get the sense is and this is what I myself would say to someone else. If someone else is being the skeptic and I was trying to sell them on WebAuthn, this is actually what I'd tell them is, well, what do you think? Like, the script can already steal the JWT. The script can already steal their password. The script can already log all their keystrokes and their clicks. In fact, people do this on purpose. Have you ever heard of Full Story? It's spyware. It like literally records the user screen like a video, and no one knows what to do with it, but everybody's got something like that included in their app. So they're constantly spying on everything that you're doing without even knowing why. It's really weird. We live in banana world. All right. So, requires resident key. Okay, let's see what we got here in terms of compatibility. I am a little worried we might head into a compatibility pitfall. Okay. A app ID exclude extension. Whatever the heck that means. There's so many of these things. Cred props extension. Okay, so not that. We're going to stick... I wish we could just shorten this down or sort this by what's the most supported. Because basically... Oh, no! 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 Oh, that's a fail. That's just a straight up... Nope. Can't do it. Nope. All right, so we're out on this. I may not be able to complete this demo in the way that I was hoping. See implementation notes. Okay. So public key, yes. Create, yes. Whatever this is, yes. Let's see if I can figure out what this is. Okay, I guess down at the bottom, I don't know why it didn't actually link me to that thing. Okay. Oh, well, let me go figure out what it was called, because it just linked me back up to the top. It didn't take me to a section that seemed to make sense. All right, here we go. This is where we need to be. Okay, now remember, just because it says FIDO doesn't mean that it's dealing with the hardware, because FIDO has become broader. Okay, I'm going to go read some of the comments here. I was on a website I liked before, and I saw my IP and user data was getting sent to a Discord webhook. I deleted the webhook because the API lets you do that if the dev exposes the webhook URL, and continued using it. It sounds like you, my friend, are also a genius. I love MDN web docs. It's like all-in-one docs. You know, they're getting better again. So MDN went through a phase where they had too much money and decided that they were political activists rather than a technology organization. And MDN started to suck so bad. But then they lost all their money and they had to focus on doing stuff that matters. And now it's getting good again. Ain't that the way? It's so strange. You know, you hear about these nonprofits. I mean, there have been so many of them in the last 10 years, especially. I mean, I don't know about anything before that. I know that nonprofits had abused money and all this, but the last 10 years, it's like nonprofit after nonprofit. They just had so much money somehow, and they would do all these stupid things that were not related to what they're supposed to do. And thankfully, a lot of them got found out. Unfortunately, a lot of people that should have gone to jail didn't. Uh-oh. What's going on here? Okay, come on. There's a little gasket for my cup. Okay, there we go. And it had rolled a little bit. Okay. So I cannot say requires resident key. All right, so that one's out for me. Because I only want to use the stuff that actually is going to work. And Safari is definitely a big one. Large blob extension. Payment extension. You know Apple's not giving that one up. But here's the thing that's surprising and good. I have been talking to people for a couple of years about how payment and identity actually are one and the same. They belong in the same layer of abstraction. Which, if you've heard me talk about abstraction, you know I'm very much keep things in their place. Don't try to wrap the whole world. Abstraction should be deep, not wide. But what I have found is that payment is actually an extension of identity, or that identity is an extension of payment. That it's basically key value, right? Literal key is identity, value is value, key value pair. Identity and payment are literally a key value pair. In terms of the way that data moves through a system. And one of the worst things that's happened to the web is, one, people don't focus on payment at all. They just focus on investor hot potato. But there's always this big divide. If Auth0 or Okta or whatever were smart and they were focused on being a profitable business rather than being an investor hot potato business, then what they would do is they would have discovered that payment and identity go together. Same thing with Venmo. Venmo was never intended to be profitable. It was never intended to be profitable. They never had a business plan. The business plan was be so annoying to PayPal that PayPal buys us out and we get a check. That was the business plan. There was no customer. There was no product. It was be so annoying and cut into their margins that they would rather buy us, so that, and then PayPal doesn't know what to do with Venmo. PayPal hasn't figured out how to make money out of Venmo. Their best shot is to try to get college kids in debt by, give them tons of deals to stuff. But PayPal still hasn't figured out what to do with Venmo. Actually, okay, here's the thing though. MDNN AI is actually the right move. I think it's actually the right move. Because say, okay, we're going to scope the AI to be hyper focused on what's available on MDN. I actually think that would not be, I trust big company guy. I use Clerk for authentication and Stripe. It's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. Get your own merchant account. All you have to do is wait 24 hours. Right? Think about it. What's the difference between having your own merchant account and Stripe? You make more money. You have less risk. You have actual customer support. There's all these benefits to a merchant account. The only benefit to Stripe is that you can get a production account without having to first have a sandbox account for the first 72 hours or 24 to 72 hours. And of course, 90% marketing. But, why would you want to have all that risk? It's just, but it's one of those things. It's like, well, we're going to use Stripe because it's so cheap as long as you don't make any money. Was that your goal? Your goal is to never make more than $20 a month? Like, your goal is to grow your business and just stop at $20 a month? Why would you No, don't do that. Just get a merchant account. Yeah, that's the thing. I will say, like, their marketing is really good. And one of the things that the other payment processors don't do very well is they don't invite you to try their sandbox API. You have to, oftentimes you have to actually contact them and have them activate your account even for the sandbox. That's the one thing that Stripe has advantage. But again, it's like the 15-minute advantage. You're going to lose money for the rest of the course of your business, have everything at risk, have no protection for your accounts. Things can be frozen at any time for any reason without any legal guarantee of being able to get the money back. And you see this happen to companies all the time. Stripe and PayPal, they are just so bad. But it's like, oh, but I'll click the button and then I can get my sandbox account. And if I click the button again, I might have a production account within 15 minutes. I just take a picture of my driver's license or I don't know how they do it these days, but something like that. And it's like, well, but if you could wait, you're not going to finish building your app by tomorrow, just like click the button on the other guy, get your merchant account and, and plan to make more than $20 a month. So, and then the same thing with Clerk, like users are your lifeblood. Users are the payment. Well, we can't, okay, users are nothing. Users are worthless. Customers are the payment. So if customers are your lifeblood, if you need customers, like, do you really want to have someone else be in charge of your customers and anytime their service goes down, how often, if you use a VPS, the VPS is like never go down. They are super reliable and they're really, really, it's like when these systems fail, they fail, entire regions or the whole internet at a time. But, I've run a server in Salt Lake for 2 years and we've had 0 downtime. Well, no, that's not true. We've had 2 minutes of downtime because one of the server OS drives failed and there is a period of time with the Watchdog where it doesn't migrate things because if the system that is down and out reappears within the window, you don't want to have the application running in 2 places. So an OS drive failed and we did have, okay, it's probably more than 2, probably 5 minutes downtime. Thing is, nobody noticed. Nobody noticed that there was any downtime. I only found out later, So, and that's a physical server. Anyway, all right, moving on. So cred props, I want to see what cred props is about. I don't see how that's useful at all. It's for some legacy thing that we're not using, so I'm not worried about it. So I think we still can get the benefit of this resident key thing, but I think that we can't rely on it to be there. So basically, we're going to have to go through a process and potentially fail the process. If, like, for example, I've got, this has an RFID inside and I can use it with my phone. So before passkeys had become something that Apple was one of the members of, I could use the passkey with this. Now, I don't even have to do that. So GitHub, I actually have one of the special edition GitHub passkeys. You can even see the logo on there. Well, they didn't call them passkeys at the time, but these things. So I got one of the special edition ones with the GitHub logo on it. I was invited to the trial or whatever. But by the time they were rolling that out, and that I actually still have to use that for NPM. But by the time they were rolling it out, the passkeys had actually gotten accepted by Apple and Microsoft and Google. So I only used it for, I don't know, a year and a half maybe, and now I don't have to do that anymore. All right. You don't want to rely on your self-made OAuth service again, never. Well, no, you can, I think that it could, we do need something that you can just pay for, you know, like pay $500 for the software outright and be done. You know, you're not paying per user per month. You just say, hey, look, I'm going to give you $500, and if I want support, I'll give you the $10,000, and, or I'll do a, you know, $200 per call or whatever it is. You know, but you do that thing and you just buy the software and just run the software. When you want the, you know, if you want to continue to get updates for the software, pay another $500 the next year. And then, you know, of course, there is a certain, you know, scale. You want people to be able to use the software when they're not making money. So you don't want to say, oh, well, you know, it's going to be $500 for the high school kid. No, yeah, give like a, you know, a free license for running on a single CPU. Anybody that's just running on a single CPU, if that's all you're running on, free license. You know, if you don't actually have a virtualized cluster, you know, if you're not at the level where you're auto scaled either physically or, you know, cloudly or whatever, then you just free. But the moment that you need to run on 2 CPUs, license key. Because people that run on 1 CPU, they don't have redundancy yet. They're just figuring things out. Once people, because your costs go up quite dramatically when you introduce redundancy, because you go straight from I'm paying $5 a month to now I'm paying $350 a month. Or something like that. You or the chat can give me some guidance. I currently play around with Python, building stuff for myself. That's great. Python is wonderful to play with. It's wonderful to learn with. Going forward, if you actually want to build something and ship it for multiple people to use, what's the easiest way? Golang. Don't use Python. I mean, here's the thing. Use Python if that's the tool that you have in your tool belt. But Python is a great language to learn. It's a terrible language to use. And it's just because it becomes very expensive and cumbersome. It's expensive to deploy because it just is. It's bad on the CPU. It's especially bad on RAM. That's where it's really, really, really bad. And RAM is super expensive. RAM is so expensive, inordinately so. So just yeah, don't. But once you, I mean, you could switch right now to learning Go and you'd have an easy time because Python and Go are so similar. They share the same philosophy. Is there a decent way to do that via Python? Or is it better to start learning something like JavaScript that runs in a browser? Well, if you're going to have to learn JavaScript if you want to do browser stuff, pretty much. Okay, C++, that does put you at a disadvantage. C++ does kind of like mess with your brain and cause you to think in strange loops. So, C is definitely better than C++. But hopefully Python is going to straighten you out a little bit, get you back on the straight and narrow. Just don't try to do any of that C++ stuff in Python. C++ is the most evil language. You know, people like to gripe about Java, but Java at least is readable code. Like you can get into a Java code base, you can figure out where the code is. C++, you know, you can't even find where the code is. It's like macros and virtual functions and you know, somebody like you see an equals operator, it turns out that's actually, you know, calculating the digits of pi and then multiplying, you know, it's like overloading. No, C++ is evil. But hopefully with microcontrollers, you weren't too tempted to do any of the bad stuff. Pick between Go, Rust, or JS. Not Rust, sorry. I have to, by all means, if somebody wants to learn Rust and they feel good about it, go ahead and let them. But I'm seeing more and more negative outcomes of Rust at the time, right now. Like I was a fan of it, but and Primogen is the same way, right? He was getting on the Rust bus, and then he started getting off the Rust bus, and he landed on Go, which is the mature choice. ML, no, absolutely do not use Python for ML. That is the absolute worst choice. Never use Python for ML. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's slow. It uses so much RAM because it has to have 3 or 4 copies of everything. So you want to process a 4 gigabyte data set? Well, now you need 12 gigabytes of RAM. Okay? And there's ways around that, but you can't do it in the cloud environments that they're going to sell you. You have to do it on a VPS. You can run a 4 gigabyte data set in Python on a $5 a month VPS, but then you have to learn this one weird trick called swap space, which is actually just 2 commands, but still, you're not going to, no, just don't do it. You can use Rust. Rust is great for ML. You've got Julia is great for ML. You've got you like the R. You just pick a language that is going to, please stop doing it in Python. All you're doing is putting money out of your pocket or some investor's pocket, and you're putting it into Jeff Bezos' pocket. Well, Amazon's pocket, right? No, please do not do whatever you want. But if you like money, don't do ML in Python. Golang. Yeah. So easiest way to install Go is right here. I'm gonna help you out. That way you don't have to deal with any of the permission issues. And then Go Essentials. Go and Go Essentials. And that'll get it set up. Should automatically start working in Vim if you're using Vim. Well, you might need Vim Go as well. That should automatically trigger VS Code to do the right things. If you're using VS Code, it'll pop up and say, hey, found Go. Yeah. I certainly recommend Vim. VS Code really does slow you down. You do get to a point, where you can type without looking at your fingers anymore. And, when you get to the point where you're no longer looking at your hands to type, VS Code is kind of a pain in the butt. But, I know a lot of people, they've been doing it for 15, 20 years, and they're still, they're looking at their hands, and that's how they do it. But if you get to the point where you're not looking at your hands anymore, it's definitely time for Vim. Everything is the worst about C++. It makes me sick. Can you give a rundown of how Go is used? Say you want to build something and ship it to multiple people. How do you go about doing that? Go makes it so easy. There's Go Releaser. Okay, we could do a hello world right now. We're not going to. But Go Releaser makes it so incredibly easy. I'm going to give you a link to this. But it's okay. All I have to do, I put a bunch of options in here, but this is kind of my go-to. Is this one? I just copy and paste this. Go is so easy. Let's just do a little hello world. We're not going to do the publish it, but you can distribute it via GitHub. Easy. And there is a framework for it for UIs that works on Windows, Mac, and Linux. Anyway, so let's do, we're just going to do hello.go. And this is actually going to autocomplete because I have Vim Go installed. And so it just does the boilerplate by default when I open up a new file. So actually, I gave a talk on this. Unfortunately, the audio is bad for the first 10 minutes of it. If you don't know Go at all, it's not a good talk though. But it is creedsofcraftsmanship.com. Here, go here, pick up some cool stuff here. Go, just peruse, find what you like. creedsofcraftsmanship.com. Take a look at that stuff. But anyway, so go run hello. Boom. That's the hello world, right? All right, go. We're going to do go hello. I'm going to do go hello. Let's get our hello.go in here. I'm going to go mod init. And then we're going to give it, github.com/example/go hello. All right, there we go. So now I can do go mod tidy. And then I can do go build, go hello. // I think I have to do // right? Yeah. All right. And then I've got go hello. Okay, now let's say you want to build it for Windows. Watch this. Hold my beer. Except I don't drink beer. Go OS equals Windows. So now go hello.exe. Boom. You want to release that? You create go releaser dot is it .yaml or do we have, is it a folder? It might actually be a folder. Hold on. Yeah. Go releaser.yaml. We copy and paste the config. Like here, I talk about the environment files and all that, how you get your token from GitHub. You know, here's an example. You want to put your, this is your boilerplate for Go Releaser. You want to have your version, the date, and the commit in there, and Go Releaser will replace that when it publishes it. So you get your GitHub token from this link. You're gonna go put it your GitHub token in this file. Then you're gonna, you know, this is just more talking about the different tokens, that how to build for different systems. So, you know, let's say we're just going to take this copy and paste, and I'm just going to replace command 123 with go hello, and we'll do a scratch build, meaning that we're not actually going to publish it to GitHub. Okay, so we did all of that, and typically, all right. So this one we're not going to do this one, and typically you put your binaries underneath of command, but for the purposes of this little demo here, we're just going to have go hello there. All right, so we've got all of our arches. We've got everything that we needed. And do I have the part with the packages? Because there is also like zip file and all that. Do we have the part about zip? This is for cross-compiling. All right, this, okay. Okay, this one has all the stuff, but we'll just leave it. We'll just leave it alone. So go releaser. Whoops. Is Go Releaser not installed right now? Webby Go Releaser. There we go. Go Releaser. Okay, snapshot, skip publish, clean. All right, we're just going to build it. What did I do wrong? Hold on, I'm going to go copy this one. This is the full example. This actually needs to be at the top. I kind of buried the lead on that one. I'll fix that in the future. I think I didn't read through it very carefully there. So example projects, CGO enabled is 0. These are all the things we're compiling for. We wouldn't actually need this. We wouldn't actually need that. We wouldn't actually need that. We don't actually need that either. Not actually going to use all that. Well, I guess we would if we wanted Raspberry Pi. So anyway. Okay. So here we go. So now it's building it for BSD, for Mac OS, for Linux, for all the things. Everything's being built. Boom, it's done. And then if I hadn't done skip publish, it would have published it to GitHub. It'd be on a GitHub release right now. So anyway, boom. Let me scroll back and check down comments. All right. So yeah, so then, and then another thing you can do is if you want to get it up on webinstall.dev, you might be able to, depending on what it is. So I am the primary person who runs webinstall.dev. And yeah, there's a lot of tools on here. There's more tools on here than are mentioned. The ones that are on the homepage are pretty much all ones that I've vetted and personally feel good about showcasing. There are some other ones where it's like, well, I don't really feel comfortable showcasing it yet because I don't understand that well. You know, if it's, you know, there's just, you know, there's a thing, but people put it in their readmes that, you know, they want to install something with Webby. All you got to do, you know, say for example, hopefully you already saw it, you want to install Go, you just copy and paste this. And it installs it immediately. It doesn't have to do a bunch of dependencies, it just boom. You got it. Anyway. So that's yeah, and then it would be on GitHub releases. So let me just think of a project where I've got some Go releases. I do have under the root company, I think I've got a database product. Let's see. SQL releases. Do we have a release? Yeah. So here, for example, MS SQL, so Microsoft SQL to CSV. You know, I just created a README for the client, and then I gave them very simple instructions on how to install it. Very similar to this. They actually have a custom, basically a white label version of this. But these are their instructions that I gave them. And so that's how they have the release builds. My Markdown WYSIWYG editor looks so bad, and the CSS file is so hard to understand. Vim. That's all I got to say about that. I use VS Code. Okay, yeah, you can use VS Code. You know, it's slow. It's got a lot of the janky pop-up things that kind of glitch and then come and go and then take over the screen. I hate it. I hate it because it's slow. Most of all, I hate it because their story with being able to work with remote servers has always been so weird. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, which is worse than it just not working at all. And I just got really fed up with that. I tried to use VS Code for a while, but the slowness, all the pop, every 5 seconds, it's almost like ads, you know? It's like, did you want to know about this method? It's like, can I type, please? Can I finish typing? Could you just let me finish moving my fingers across the keyboard? So yeah, I get really frustrated with VS Code. But no, that's it. That's it. I mean, I've tried to use it. I've tried to get into it. I just can't. And when they added the SSH support, I was like, okay, now I can get into this, but I just, nope. Plus it's so hard to configure. Vim, you just copy one folder and boom, you're done. You check that into a Git repo or just copy it from one computer to another, and you always have your environment set up just the way you want it. So I'll post on Twitter today with someone releasing Llama.js, and I just can't. I can't wait to hear about it. Free Code Camp video is worth going? Probably. The thing is, it's so hard to rate material. It's so hard. I would say, generally speaking, if you're going to pay $300 or $400 for a course, you're probably going to get a lot better quality. You know, look at Kent C. Dodds. His courses are excellent. They cost, I mean, he's kind of banking on the fact that your boss is going to pay for it. But even if your boss isn't going to pay for it, you're just, you know, I don't know where you're at with your time and your money and all that, but if you can find the person who's the best person to teach the thing you want to learn, just go pay the $400 for their course. It's just, but you got to be committed to it too. Don't do it if you're not actually going to, you know, watch their free videos, see if you like their style. And if you're actually going to commit to it, pay the $400. If your goal is to learn and to get up to speed quickly, pay the $400. If you're not really sure what you're doing and you're just kind of dipping your toe in, yeah, do the free code stuff, do the YouTube stuff. You know, yeah, it's great. CPP is bad because LSP goes "Huh," when you try to figure out the types. Yes, agreed on that. I am always feeling the drinks and better get work done while I can. Yeah. All right. Well, catch you later, Hunar. With Go, there is a huge ecosystem where people share packages that help you do lots of stuff and make life easy. Yes, that is true. Well, and it's like, here's the thing. If you are using packages in Go, you're probably doing it wrong. You don't need to use packages in Go. What you need to do is just find out what the latest way to do it is in Go. Go is one of the few languages where everything you need to do can be done in the standard library, with the exception of a few things that are probably things that you don't really need to worry about right now. And if it's not in the standard library, it's in the extended standard library. I mean, basically every web spec, every protocol, anything that you can imagine, there is either an official or an experimental release. And by experimental, I mean, there's golang.org where you can learn, or I guess now it's go.dev. Okay. So effective Go, excellent, book to read, creedsofcraftsmanship.com, curated stuff on there. There's videos, there's articles, poke around on creedsofcraftsmanship.com. I shared the link earlier. Standard library. Almost everything that you will ever need to do can be done in the standard library, and the stuff that can't be done in the standard library, you can find in the X library. Oh wait, what is it? Is it, what's the X library under? The extended library, hold on. I think it used to be golang.org/x. Okay, there we go. Oh, okay. So what they did is it's package.go.dev/golang.org/x. So all the stuff that's not in the standard library is in the extended library. And it, like, look, OAuth 2, just like whatever you can think of, it's there. There's a few exceptions to that. They don't have any UI kits in this. But, you know, if you're going to do your UI in JavaScript, templates are built into the language. I would say your first instinct anytime you see somebody using a framework for something is to stay away from it, because it's in the standard library now. The frameworks got popular in the early days before everything was in the standard library. The HTTP router that's in the standard library, almost nobody knows about it. But it's the best HTTP router on the planet. Let's see if I can find this. Yeah, let's see. New request. No, not that one. I want the server. Sorry, we're looking at the client right now. Let me see about the... we probably should be looking at HTTP MUX. Let's see, servers. Let's see, handle func. Where's MUX at? Default, serve MUX. Handle func. Let's go look at handle func. Pattern string. Okay, well, if I... Okay. HTTP router go standard library. Let me find the blog article on it. All right, it was this one right here, enhance goes HTTP router, and they did. Maybe all you need is the standard library. That's correct. Yeah, this would be a good post to look at. So this is what I was talking about. This is the best routing in the industry. It took them forever. They didn't release this until last year. It took them forever. It took them like 15 years to finally include this in the standard library. But when they finally did it, it's the best thing in the universe. You cannot find a better router in Rust, in Node. Like, there's nowhere you can go to find routing that's easier than this. It took them forever to do it. And the funny thing is, they just did the obvious thing, but there were several little pieces that were ambiguous. And their thing is, if it's ambiguous, we're not going to do it. In the face of ambiguity, refuse the temptation to guess. That is part of the Python Zen, which if you haven't done import Python, you need to do that. Anyway, so point being, this right here, there is nothing better in the industry. No one has ever created a better router. I saw it and I thought, it's so simple. It's so obvious. How have we not solved this before? And how did it take them so long to solve it? But there's just a number of things like that. So yeah, this is an excellent blog post. I haven't actually seen this one before, but this is great. Anyway, okay. We're looking at web authentication extensions. Switch from SvelteKit to React because there's a better ecosystem. Don't do it. Don't do it. There's not a better ecosystem. There's absolutely not a better ecosystem. There's more people who don't know what they're doing publishing crap code that doesn't work. React is the dregs. React is the new PHP. React is the people. I'm sorry, I'm going to offend everyone. I'm an equal opportunity offender, just so you know. I offend everybody equally. But React is for people that don't know how to do web development. Which I guess, that's the tagline, right? That's the tagline. But the problem is when you have, in the beginning, it's there's this genius, create something that nobody can understand that looks like magic, and it gains some popularity. Fine. But then you attract all the people who have no idea what it's doing, who don't know how to use it, and then start building modules on top of it. This is what you need to use right here. This is it. Here's your framework. There is your framework right there. Use that. Build an app with that as your framework. Well, look, here's the thing. We all start with PHP, right? Because when you have no idea what you're doing and you search, how do I program? At least, up until 5 years ago, maybe. You say, how do I program? What pops up? PHP. I want to build a website. What pops up? PHP. So when you don't know what you're doing, that's where you land. I was there too. I started with PHP. And I thought I was learning to program, and then I realized that I wasn't learning to program, I was learning PHP. Then I learned a programming language, and my life got better. And I actually understood what I was doing, because when I was using PHP, nothing made sense. And I'm a pretty smart guy. I am a web dev genius. So when I was using, and also it was like my very first programming language. So, there was also that barrier to entry. But nothing made sense. But, don't tell my friends, but, I used Java for 2 weeks at school, and then everything made sense. And I'm like, oh yeah, I get this. Programming makes sense now. And then I learned other patterns, and, I ended up with JavaScript and Go, and a little bit of Zig on the side. But anyway, I don't want to build a separate backend, then yeah, Go would be a great language then. Go would be a great choice. And I think, I used to be against the idea, but now that I see what the modern web has evolved to, I'm back in team. If you're not really confident about your front end skills, definitely just use Go. Don't worry about, just submit the form, handle it. Don't worry about it. React was great when it came out. It's just they forever want backwards compat, and it's not healthy. Well, the other thing too is that it went from having a specific purpose. It handled one specific use case that everyone thought they had at the time, which is doom scrolling. How do you allow a user to scroll hundreds of posts, just like throw the posts up and then pull them back down? And not only that, because we had some virtual table stuff for handling that before that worked decently well, and then the browser started taking advantage of some optimization techniques, which kind of broke some of the virtual table stuff. So then we had to do some other things to get back the same functionality that we had before the browsers optimized it away. But the thing that was unique about React in particular was not only would it make it easy to scroll up and down and be able to replace those elements very quickly and keep everything in memory, so you're only rewriting a little bit. But in particular, the virtual DOM, the nesting thing, which turns out in real web applications turns out to be horrifically slow and complicated and blah 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 blah. But that's because real web applications aren't doom scroll applications. When you've got lots of state to manage and lots of things going around, turns out virtual DOM doesn't work so well. But that's because virtual DOM was created for this one thing. How do we get more performance scrolling back and forth with live updating comments? And that was the kicker, was that not only are you going to be replacing these elements, but you're going to keep track of the state when people are commenting live. So while you're scrolling, they wanted to have interactive. As you scroll, you could see, oh, a comment just appeared. Oh, a like just appeared. And that was what React was built for. Now, how many websites are there that do that? Well, it used to be Facebook. Now it's Instagram, Twitter, but Twitter didn't use React. And I don't know, every single business, quote unquote business, every single investor hot potato that existed during that time period. Everybody was trying to do it. Everybody wanted doom scrolling. They wanted doom scrolling on their e-commerce site. They wanted doom scrolling on their email client. They wanted, doom scrolling was the future. Doom scrolling was then what AI is now. Like everybody wanted, except that AI actually is helpful. Whereas doom scrolling, it didn't help anybody. Anyway, so there's that. So React was good at that task, but then they're like, oh, well, we're going to make it do this. We're going to make it do this. We're going to make it do this. We're going to make it. And they've literally created, to your point, forever backwards compatibility. The branding is so good. The branding is so good, but that they won't make another product because the branding that is invested in React is tens of millions of dollars that they don't have anymore. So it's like with Dino, right? The guy who created Node.js creates Dino, and then no one cares. So if the team that's building React were to actually say, hey, we built this new framework and we're calling it Atomic or whatever, no one would care because all of the brand money went into React. And so you can't create a new product when you're stuck like that. And so instead what they do is they create a completely different product that's completely unrelated to React, and then they call it React version 12 or whatever it is when they completely revamp the entire system. And then they do it again with whatever, like React 15 or 18 or whatever. And then aren't they doing it again right now? Aren't they creating a whole entirely new framework that has nothing to do with any of the other frameworks that they've ever created? And they're just calling it React again. So that's the problem with React is they want to create something different, but they also can't hold that position of power and prestige if they call it something else. So they're just always, no matter what framework they're building, they're always going to call that framework React. Is PHP bad? Yes. It is morally wrong to use PHP. It makes you a bad person. If you're religious, see your priest or religious leader if you use PHP. First thing hosted was MediaWiki, and I built plugins for it using PHP. Yep. And I hope that it served you well. But you can turn to the light. You don't have to stay there. I hope you don't stay there. Come to the light. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you'll enjoy it so much more once you have a programming language and you have access to standard library and you don't have to deal with things going in forward and reverse and either which way, and then never having any way to do error handling. And you're going to love it. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard because the entire paradigm is flipped upside down. Everything that PHP represents is literally backwards. So it's going to feel like going from Windows to Mac when you start using a programming language. It's going to be jarring. I don't like it. I can't find where anything is. And then it turns out those things aren't there because you don't need them. The things that you need are actually, right in front of your face. So give Go a weekend. Go is the easiest language to learn by far. If you've got experience with PHP, you're going to be familiar with a lot of patterns. Yes, you're going to have this knee jerk like, you're going to vomit. Just like it's going to be traveler's diarrhea. But when it's over, you're like, dang, this is the best Mexican food I've ever had. All right. Why is so much stuff shipped via browser nowadays? Is it due to everyone can easily just go to a URL? Yeah. I mean, it's democratized the world of information. So yeah. But also, okay, it depends on what you mean by shipped. So products aren't shipped via browser. Flycatchers are shipped via browser because products have customers. Most web apps do not have customers. Most web apps have users. And again, that's all about hot potato with investors. And there's a distinct difference. When you have a product, you are responsible to the customer for that product. When you have a product, you have to get the person to buy it. But when you have a flycatcher, just every week you want to release a flycatcher that's a little bit better, right? So you don't have any responsibility to build features that a customer would want. You have a responsibility to build a flycatcher that catches more flies for an investor that's trying to figure out what to do with this hot potato that's just about to burn a hole through his pocket. I once tried forking React, tried removing old features, class comps, having all ESM. That lasted 3 days. Well, bless your heart. Dino has had a bit of a cult following. Okay. I do like some things that Dino are doing, but just like Windows Phone, they're just a little too late and not enough marketing to keep the hype going. Yeah. Well, I think their initial idea was really good. I wish they'd kept with it. Their initial idea is what I saw, which maybe I was wrong, but definitely their initial idea was start the ecosystem over, and it's going to be a new language. It's going to be TypeScript. We're not going to do JavaScript. We're not going to do NPM packages. We're not going to do Node. But then as it evolved, it's just, well, it's Node, but 30% faster. Well, if I wanted Node, but 30% faster, you know what I'd do? I'd use Go. You know? Like if I want a language that's like quick and easy, but also fast, easy to distribute, solves all the package management issues, I'd use Go. And so that's I think where there's a problem, is that it's easier, and this is a psychological thing that's pretty well known. You can look up studies about it, but it's a paradox of choice issue, and also everybody that does business coaching with the sales talks about this. People buy like sex, status, and health, or I guess sex is part of status, so it's health, wealth, relationships. Okay, that's what it is. Health, wealth, relationships. But sometimes they break out sex and status differently, and sometimes they break out one of the other things differently. But health, wealth, and relationships. That's what everybody buys, and people want experiences that are new, not experiences that are improvement. So whenever you have something that you want to sell to an audience, you have to emphasize not why it's better than what they're using, but how it's new and different from what they're using. Because people just don't gravitate towards better. They gravitate towards new. I don't remember why the three of those had to do with that, but it was I think there was actually two different topics. Like one of the topics is, what is it that people are buying? Like why do people buy into something? And it doesn't have to be money. It can be an emotional commitment. Like, how is Dino making you wealthier, healthier, or your relationships better? Or we probably would split this more towards the status. Like, how is it making your status higher? If it's got a cool factor to it. But the more you allow in the old cruft, the lower your cool factor is. And so when it ends up being that, well, I don't know. I am going to use Dino on a project that's running on an Ubuntu. It's a screenshot tool. It's not really going to do much, but I'm just going to use it to try it out. I'm also going to use Bun for the same thing, but I'm going to get to use Bun on the Alpine image because Bun works on Alpine and Dino doesn't. So anyway, I don't know if there's actually, to me, Bun seems exciting. I'm interested to see where it goes. I'm looking forward to it. I really like it. Dino, it actually, I believe, is faster than Bun. Ryan Dahl did kind of have a little bit of a me moment. And by me moment, I mean a grumple-up moment when I brought up Bun, because and this is no surprise, the stats that they use on Bun's website to compare it to Dino for performance are not fair, because it's like, how many times a second can you do nothing? Well, that doesn't actually matter. It matters how many times a second you can do something. Well, if it's something, it's a little harder to measure than nothing. If you just run a loop that doesn't do anything, and you could run the loop that does nothing faster, then you can have a benchmark that's faster. And so there's some maybe something about that. Anyway, all right, and y'all got me ranting. Thank you. It's enjoyable. I appreciate it. And raving. That's even more enjoyable. But I'm gonna get back to the thing I was doing in a minute. All right. Like, do some things Dino are doing, just like Windows Phone. Okay. I have to buy Microsoft Office, but even now that's down the browser. Yes. Well, okay, but there's a very specific reason for this. And if you have not owned a business, if your max net worth has not reached $1 million, it is difficult to see how the system goes. And I say net worth. If your net worth is $1 million, you probably have no money and you're eating ramen. Because people who have a net worth of $1 million that are in business as opposed to, say, real estate. Well, real estate's a business, but people that are in a startup business who have a net worth of $1 million don't have a dime to their name. They are begging their parents, their friends, they're couch surfing, they're, like they have roommates with the people that they're working with. They're roommates with the people they're working with. They have no money. But when you're in that situation and you kind of see how the wheels churn, the reason that Microsoft is switching over to Microsoft Office is because investors need to see a new source of revenue. And the problem with Microsoft Office is that it's an Apex product. It only gets so good. We don't need Office to do everything. And so Microsoft would actually have to create a different product that's not Windows and not Office, because everybody's sold and it's sufficient. It does what you need it to do. You would pretty much never have upgraded from Office 2004, except for that it just at one point broke. And so Microsoft, Apple, many of these companies are switching over to software as a service because it opens up the door to investors to imagine something. Okay? Because when you don't have customers, everyone could be a customer. As long as you're not profitable and you don't have customers with a particular business model, everyone could be a customer. The sky is the limit. And with companies like Microsoft and Apple, they've already reached every single person on the planet. So they're like, they either have to turn the people into customers, or they have to find a new way to make it look like there's more people. And the way that they make it look like more people is by switching things over to the browser model, where now instead of customers, they have users. And boy, do they have a lot of users. They have almost everyone on the planet. And users aren't customers, but maybe one day they could become customers. And so it's stupid stuff that has to do with federal interest rates and investment and pyramid schemes. That's what it is. That is that simple. But stock prices are supposed to be valued based on dividends, but people can't make the dividends. So what they do instead is they create speculative opportunity. And there's a joke, and I think it was in that TV show Silicon Valley, about this exact same thing that I'm saying, is that like the best way to stay a business is to never be profitable. Because as long as you're not profitable, there's always an investor that believes that once you're profitable, the profits are going to be extraordinary. But the truth of the matter is, Apple is the most profitable company on the planet, and they trade their shares for 10 times what they're worth. Meaning that if you had an Apple share for 10 years, you would break even. If you bought it at the price today and you kept the share for 10 years and they had the same growth, meaning that they matched inflation, that they have now, you would break even in 10 years. So, and that's, and the reason I say, the net worth, I want to make it clear, it's not like, oh, well, if you got a lot of money, then you know these things because you're a big boy. But it is kind of a big boy thing, but it isn't the money thing. It's the being involved in the system, being part of the system and seeing how the system is played. And then it wasn't, I didn't learn all this stuff when I was in the system. I learned it when I was out of the system. Or I was it's like when I look back on my experience and I see how things went and like the troubles we had and, things that worked and didn't work, it was easier. We got more money. Bad things happen. Anyway. Okay. I hope that you enjoy Go. One caution I'll give you is that there's not a lot of beginner material for Go, which is kind of insane because it is the easiest language to learn. But it's so easy to learn. It's so easy to learn. But it's like Go's the language for mature adults. And, one of the things is like, unless you've attained that level of maturity, you wouldn't want to look at it because it's not cool. Go is not a cool language. It's never been cool. It'll never be cool. Go is a very boring language. is very easy, and it does what it's supposed to do, and it doesn't have any sort of like magical property to it. It's boring, it works well, it's easy to learn. All things that generally people don't like. And so with that, you know, like you use Go because you have to or out of wisdom, but you don't use Go because it's cool. You know, it doesn't have any of the cool features. So the beginner tutorials are, they're just not as plentiful as I wish they were. But again, creedsofcraftsmanship.com. Check this out. This is what I'll give you. This is the best material I can give you. creedsofcraftsmanship.com. It takes you to this GitHub issue, and then you've got resources for learning Go. And this is going to be your best bet, I think. Go is very boring, and that's why it's interesting. Indeed. Users can also be anon, and so that creates multiple virtual users. Oh, yes. So this, I think, is technically illegal, but Facebook. Well, okay, so the way that Facebook did this, they didn't create the users themselves. What they did was they used their ad network to incentivize people. They created a Mechanical Turk ad network, and they did not enforce any of their policies on the bots, because the bots would make it look like there were more users. It looking like there are more users would mean that they were able to get more money out of advertisers. And so if they had solved the problem with the Mechanical Turk bot ad scenario and all the fake likes, buy 10,000 likes, blah, blah, blah. So if they'd solved that problem, it would have cut them off at the knees, because the only thing they had going for them was that the line was going up, but the line wasn't money. And so to keep the ads when they didn't actually have the users or engagement, they didn't create the bot farms, but they incentivized them, and then they didn't enforce any of their policies on fake accounts or bots or whatever. I wonder what is Facebook doing right now? Okay, as Ryan Reynolds once said, boring is always best. Agreed. Okay, so now, all right, let's see if I can get back to this WebAuthn. I'm gonna have to cut this stream off, and I didn't even do anything. I've been ranting for 2 hours. It's been good though. I do wish that I had gotten something done, but because I sat down because I wanted to get something done. You know how that goes sometimes. No, maybe, yeah, I don't know. All right, so let's do this. We're gonna move this over into we're gonna call it demo.js. It's one of my favorite names for a file, or we could call it app.js. App's okay. We can call it app.js. Anyway, so we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna move this over, and we're gonna do app.js, and we're gonna paste that in. Boom. And then, all right, so now we go back over here. See, I offended a lot of people. We had people in here, and I offended them, and they left. But that's what I do. Equal opportunity offender. Everybody's warned. I'm gonna try to insult all the terrible things you do in the best way that I can, and then lead you to the path of light in exactly the wrong way. It is the path of light. If I were a better person, I'd help you get there. At least help you get there better. Okay. Cool. So here we are. Whoa, what is this? What? DevTools? Address test data? What? That's new. That was not there last time. Remember last time we refreshed? Oh, that's cool. I do like this. That is neat. When did this happen? That's cool. Except I kind of need it to be, I don't want it to be in Mountain View, California. Thank you very much. I would prefer that everybody just stay the heck away from there. That's where all the Fed money goes. And that's where everybody's poor. except for the few rich people who think that they are saviors of the planet. All right. This is so... this pattern is such a bad pattern. Please stop doing it. Stop doing it. All right. All right. We're going to go look at the example that I have. That's a good example. This is so cool. It's so cool to see WebAuthn doing this, because I just created a pattern like this a few days ago, and I've been thinking more about it. You know, what's the best way to make this pattern work? Basically, I need events, but the events need to be like what this is doing, where you create the event and then you just wait for it until it happens. You don't listen to the event. You create the event and then await it. And that's exactly what they're doing here. And it's really cool to see that there is something that's super mainstream that's doing exactly what I'm doing. Well, not exactly, because the one that I'm doing, the events are recurring. So it would almost seem like you should use an event listener. But the problem with the event listener is you can't await it. You can't know when it's done. So what I'm doing instead is I'm putting something that's very similar to this, but I'm just putting it in a loop. And then something else on the other end is handling the click events, as it were, and doing it that way. You and Primogen have the best rants. I don't know, man. I've got 3 followers. So I think he's got the best. I love him. I love him. At first, I was like, what is this guy? And he was weirder at the beginning. He's chilled out a little bit, because he used to do this weird, he used to talk a lot more about penises. That, it was a little weird. You know? Type 69 in the chat, if you know what I'm talking about. It was a little weird. And he had this thing where he'd press the button on his Stream Deck and then the car would roll through, but his camera would flip upside down and then he'd be talking to Karen. He hasn't done that in a while, or at least maybe he only does that on the streams, and maybe they don't make it into the videos. Maybe he still is talking about genitalia all the time. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think as men, we need to talk about genitalia. I think it's actually important. I think that if men are not talking about genitalia, there's something wrong with the world. But he was just a little bit weird about it. He's got no filter, but sometimes, anyway, I love him. I absolutely love him. And the more of his stuff I watch, the more I realize that he is the genius. The one thing that he doesn't get is that he's the genius. I think he thinks that because he was on drugs and like there was a period in his life where he was doing nothing, that he's not smart. But he is, and like he has too much humility in the sense that he has this need to be humble in face of the truth, or what I shouldn't say need. I don't know what his psychological circumstances are, but what I was getting at is he honestly believes that other people can achieve what he's achieved, and it's just not true. So that's but you know, it's an incredibly positive message to give to the world, and certainly some people can achieve what he's achieved, but not anyone can. You can't just work hard and have that kind of success. There is a certain element of luck, but not luck like Veritasium talks about. Luck as in you're born more intelligent than 99, not exaggerating, because that's just 1 out of 100 people. That's actually pretty low bar. You know, 99% of people, he is capable of figuring things out more than most people. It's not the, well, I work hard. Richard Feynman had the same problem. Well, I call it a problem. It has a benefit to the world. It's a net positive benefit, because telling people yes you can is better than telling them no you can't. And that's probably why I only have 3 followers. But it's unrealistic. Richard Feynman was a literal genius. I don't know if he was up there with Einstein, but I think that if your only mark of genius is Einstein, I think your bar is a little high. I think somewhere around 140-ish or so, maybe a little lower, because I'd love to be a genius too, but I'm definitely not at, like, I know my IQ is not up there. But like, when you're in the realm of genius, when you're more than 2 orders of magnitude, or what is it, standard deviations intelligent than the rest of people around you, there are things you can do that other people can't do. And I think the problem is people think that intelligence is a moral value. Like, if you're smart, you're good. This is not true. Smartness does not contribute to goodness or evilness. Smartness is just smartness, and it's an immutable characteristic. Well, not entirely immutable. You can make it a little bit better. I mean, just like, well, no, it's a immutable characteristic like height. You can have better nutrition, you will grow taller at the right time. You have better nutrition, you'll be smarter, right? But you can't work harder and become more intelligent. You can't work harder and become taller. There are things you can do to limit your potential, but you can't surpass your potential. And that's just like Richard Feynman, Primogen are 2 core examples of people that were just so optimistic, such positive influences. Well, Primogen still is, but he honestly believes that people can achieve what he can achieve. And he has an immutable characteristic that enables him that, I mean, I can't say with certainty, whatever, but it's clear to me that he is highly intelligent. And he probably thinks that his problem was drugs. He probably took drugs because he was highly intelligent and needed more stimulation. And, that's obviously an anti-pattern. But while he was on drugs, he obviously wasn't improving his life at all. And now that he's off drugs, he's improving his life. And so it seems like, oh, well, the correlation was drugs. And I want to believe that everybody can be a good person, and being smart's a good person. So therefore, everybody can be smart. But it's just not true. So anyway, there's that rant. But that's probably why I don't have any followers, because nobody wants to hear you have an immutable characteristic that you're not as smart as the 1% of people that can do this really, really well. So you can work hard at it and you'll be mediocre. It's not an encouraging message, but I don't want to discourage anybody. You have to work hard to figure out if you're in that 1%. But whether or not you're in that 1% is an immutable characteristic. If you do something that you're good at and you dedicate your energies towards something you're good at, you can become the top 1%. And that's, like I said, that's a low bar. Like, look at 100 people around you. You were certainly better at, like, I don't know, volleyball or soccer, or there's so many areas of interest and ability. You are definitely in the top 1% of probably more than one thing out of the people that are in your circle. And this is normal and good. Like, this is morally good for people to have diverse abilities. But to try to say software is morally good and being smart is morally good and work ethic is morally good, but even that, to some degree, your work ethic is determined by some immutable characteristics. Not determined, but has a lot to. Anyway, so the point being, I think we just need to stop saying, oh, because you're tall, pretty, handsome, smart, funny is not necessarily immutable. There are some personality characteristics that tend towards funny, but the other ones that are immutable characteristics. We kind of stop thinking in our minds that someone is good because of these. They're not good. They're fortunate. They may be able to produce a lot of good in the world, but being smart is not good. There's no fundamental moral value to smartness. And that's my, you should, if you're dumb as a rock. I know a guy he is dumb. He is below the bell curve. But he is such I don't say this in a pity way. I mean it real. He is an admirable man. He is honest. He does what he does with integrity. He is a good father. He is a good husband. He is someone that I honestly believe we would all be a little bit better if we could aspire to be like him. But he is not smart. And so, but he is a morally good person. Like, there are a lot of smart people, I don't know if we're going to see each other in heaven or not. I hope I make the cut. But yeah, so it's not a moral virtue. Anyway, what up, Vitals? Okay. And again, I still have not gotten to the work yet. Peeing again. Karen is live stream only. Okay. All right. So I guess I saw a few of his live streams, and that most of the stuff I see is on YouTube, and that's not live stream. So I must have seen it on Twitch a few times, because I don't really watch Twitch. You know, I'm a producer, not a consumer in that way. I write lots of JavaScript modules. I don't npm install very many JavaScript modules. You know, that kind of thing. Giop bot, was it a bot that I blocked or a bot that I didn't block? His meth story is really inspiring. Yes, absolutely. 100% agree. His meth story is really inspiring. Yes. Come out of meth addiction was relative sanity and smarts intact is rare. Yes. But again, I am going to postulate that it is two things. I think that we mostly could agree it is the grace of God. Now, whether you consider that Fortuna, the goddess of luck, or some other god, or Christ, the god of forgiveness and second chances, or whatever it is the grace of God on the one hand. And I will say this. As a religious person, I think that God has a work for the Primogen to do. And I don't think that his work is to be a televangelist missionary. But he brings good into the world. You know, he's got kind of a potty mouth sometimes. You know, he's not like this paragon of moral. I mean, in saying this, I don't mean to diss the guy at all. He's not priestly. That's what I'm saying. In no way would I ever consider him priestly, but there is a light that he brings into the world that the world is blessed for him being here. And he is, I honestly believe to some degree, you know, it's not like I think he's a figure of worship or anything, but he's doing the Lord's work in a way. He is helping people. He's bringing light. I admire that so much about him. And, you know, if the one nitpick I can make about him is that he believes that other people can be as successful as he is, well, that's not much of, you know, a nitpick. I really like the guy. I love his stuff. And I love that he's teaching people to be sane software developers. You know, I listen to what he says, and you know, he talks about that genuine curiosity and the, you know, really being open-minded, and then he is that. And sometimes I wonder how he can do this, because I'm thinking, Prime, you know going in that this thing is dumb, but you're going to give it the benefit of the doubt, and you're going to be, you know, like, you're going to point out the good things. Like, he's always praising people, always giving everybody the benefit of the doubt, always looking at things from both sides. And yeah, amazing character of a human. Yeah, love Prime. Anyway, so there's my Prime rave. I really do. Like, and you know, yeah. But also, okay, so now that it's been, I don't know, an hour and a half since I actually read the page that I have open, I'm going to take 5 minutes of not looking at the chat. Thank you very much. And get back to the work at hand. Can proceed with creation of public key credential. Okay. So is verify this? Okay, this is one of the ones that I need to make sure works across the board, right? Okay, this one works across the board, except there's a note on Firefox. What is the note? How do I get the note? Oh, only supports USB UTF tokens. Huh. Wait, this is since 2018? Certainly, we are not in the world of 2018. Let's go look at can I use. I need to bookmark this. Why did that not autocomplete when did I not have it bookmarked before? Okay. Asterisk. Is there an asterisk here? That doesn't look. I see asterisks. What do these asterisks mean? So 1, Firefox. What are the other options? Why would Firefox do this to us? All right, what is this one? Verifying platform authenticator available. Okay, so I think I'm gonna have to skip a lot of this and just go with let's build the thing, because I'm discovering more and more, and that's good. Okay, so this is just awaiting it. So it's waiting for a feature to load, or? Interesting. Oh, await. So it's going to return true. Supports WebAuthn. Ouch. Do we really need that one? Well, okay, I do want to know, what does this mean? What does the words literally mean? Is user verifying platform authentic? Oh, and by the way, I do want to say thank you for that compliment. I appreciate that, Hunar. Okay. So, is user verifying platform authenticator available? Okay. Can we break this down? Is user verifying okay, if we were to say this in English, would it be user hyphen verifying? Okay, I got to read more. I get hung up by grammar. Like, I need commas in the right places. I need hyphens in the right places. Don't use a hyphen when it's not a hyphen. Use a hyphen when it's a hyphen. I need that. It's very hard for me to understand what that says. All right, static method, returns a promise, resolves true if a user verifying platform authenticator is present. User verifying. Huh? Look at that. Hyphenated. Gotcha. Platform authenticator. What does that mean? I think I just read, is Banana McMuffin Squirm Dog Jelly Fart? Really? Great. Those are words. They do make sense together, like banana muffin jelly, maybe chocolate rather than the other word. If we want to keep it in things that, there's banana muffin, chocolate muffins, anyway. Okay, user verifying platform is a kind of multi-factor authenticator that is part of the client device. Okay. Honestly, I'm going to give a point to Apple on this one, although this was probably standardized many years ago, before this was even popular, because a lot of this stuff has only become popular recently. Yeah, so this was standardized back in 2018, but man, this is one of the reasons that WebAuthn has taken so long to take off. This is neither technically descriptive nor informational. Oh, there we go. That's it. Touch ID, Windows Hello, device unlock. Got it. Firefox doesn't build into the operating system. Firefox only works with the thingy-mabob. I actually don't care about this, because the password for the operating system is fine to me. So this may be why the demo wasn't working for Jojo, because he does not have any of these things, and this is requesting those things. So I'm actually going to say, first of all, I want to document what this is. I'm going to go to my documentation page. I'm going to add a note on it. Okay, where are my notes at? Right here. I might throw this on the other page just so I don't get confused by the billions of tabs that I have open. But yes, the key information that we need, I am sorry to say it, but the brand names actually communicate something. Whereas that string of valid English words did not. Yeah, their level of abstraction is just one too high. But I don't know. I mean, what there's kind of a history in auth of using strange terms in weird ways that kind of is coherent in its own way. Like when they say, these aren't flows, they're ceremonies. But it's like, well, it makes sense because, well, flows, That's for OAuth and OIDC. Ceremonies, now that's WebAuthn. That's next level stuff. But we do, we do this over and over again, but it kind of makes sense. But yeah, that was a little weird. Anyway, let's see. I've got some technical notes here. Client notes, server notes, compatibility. Okay, I'm actually okay with Firefox being the way that it is. This doesn't bother me. Okay, so this is true if Touch ID on, Touch ID enabled. Okay, so this frustrates me, and this is the kind of thing that I do think ought to be illegal. Again, I am very libertarian. I think there are problems that the government has caused. The solution is probably not to make anything else illegal. The solution is probably to remove what the government did to create the problem. But one of the problems that the government has created is that it has supported Apple in being able to have bogus patents, which I'm not sure if any patents aren't bogus, because they seem to only be exclusively used by large companies and patent trolls, and they seem to never actually help someone who's developing a product for a customer. At least I'm not aware of any time that it's helped. I'm not personally, all of the things I know about patents personally. No, I know one person who has a patent that actually, well, I don't know that it ever ended up helping. I know that it got bought and it made his life better, and he did it on purpose to help other people. I don't know if the company that bought it ever did anything good with it, or if they just shelved it away so they can attack someone else. But I don't believe that was his intent. I believe that his intent was for it to be used for good. But typically, patents, when they're bought and sold, they're not. Anyway, point being, Apple is able to create hardware that doesn't work. Like, I can buy a Touch ID keyboard, but if my Mac doesn't have Touch ID built in, the Touch ID keyboard won't work, even though the software supports it and the hardware supports it. But the Mac just decides, meh. If you didn't buy the computer with it, we're not going to let you add it later. And I think that is the kind of thing that needs to be, fixed. Yeah, this right here. I bought one of these for my old computer with the Touch ID button. And the only way you can get that Touch ID button is if you buy this thing. So there are some custom mods that are extremely difficult to make or expensive to buy, where somebody has removed the Touch ID chip out of the keyboard, like bought the $170 keyboard to get the Touch ID chip, and then built something else with it. And then when it gets connected, the Apple computer thinks it's the whole keyboard, but all the other keys are gone. Anyway, you buy this $170 freaking keyboard, and then if you use it with a Mac that doesn't already have the button on it, it's useless. Or, okay, it's about the year and the model. So the reason I have this is for the Mac Studio, which is a desktop. But yeah, it would not work on my other Mac, and that made me very upset, because it should work. There's no reason that it wouldn't work, except that they literally just made it not work. And I think that is morally wrong. There might be cases where it's not morally wrong, but I would say that this is clearly morally wrong. Again, one day, I don't know how we will do it. One day, I hope that we can get back to building products for customers, where what you receive is because you paid for it, and the reason you paid for it is because you wanted it and you believed it would deliver value, and the reason that you would buy it again is because it delivered the value that met your expectations. And what was the thing on Firefox? Okay, what is USB U2F? Is that FIDO2? They keep on changing the name of these things, which is good for branding, but that's a FIDO2? So this one right here, so on Firefox, this will work. Okay. My MacBook Pro has Touch ID. I did not know that if you do not have Touch ID already, you can't use the external Touch ID. Yeah, that ticked me off. But you know, it's we Jonathan Blow is onto something. We may be headed towards the collapse of society. But you know what? I actually don't have that on Creeds of Craftsmanship yet. It doesn't. I'm not sure that it absolutely fits there, but I'm gonna go put that there. Jonathan Blow. What the weird? Why are? Huh. Civilization. Oh, I have not seen that one. The problem with concise code? I really want to watch this. Oh, I was thinking. Okay, I was lying in bed and I was thinking. All the code that I'm writing these days requires more lines of code. And yet I'm writing less code. Like I'm writing libraries that in order to use the library, you have to use more lines of code. But the libraries are smaller and the like minification may have been going the wrong direction. I don't there's this paradox. Because I have more lines of code, everything is more the reason there's more lines of code is not for the purpose of more lines of code, is because there's a clear separation. Like I don't put the storage in the abstraction. I leave the storage in the business logic. I call business logic. I get data that needs to go into storage from the business logic area. I put the data in the storage. You know, once the data is ready to go to the network, in the business logic, I put it to the network. I'm not abstracting. So my functions a lot of them are twice as big in terms of when you look at the code that the business logic has to handle. The business logic is responsible for more code. But because the business logic is what has the requirements that change, that's actually where those decisions should be made. And it makes it so much easier to modify the code. I'm not quite sure how to describe this yet. I was talking about it in the last stream, or maybe it was the stream before last. But as I am writing this code that's more verbose and I'm comparing, okay, I mean, this is an extreme example, but it's actually not that extreme. I'm doing in 200 kilobytes the same thing. I'm not exaggerating here. What another organization, another team in the organization is doing in, if you're being generous, 30 megabytes, or if you look at the download size, it's 127 megabytes. But I guess like 50 megabytes of that is type files, so I don't know how much of it is actually stuff that once it gets transpiled and tree shaken and, you know, all that. But yeah, so if you look at my code, it's more verbose. And it's like this paradox. So how is it that if I have more lines of code, that I have fewer functions and less code. I don't know how to articulate it yet. I kind of have a sense of why it's that way, but I don't know how to articulate it yet. But I think what happens is when there's too much abstraction, one, you've got a lot of abstraction that you don't need. But then also you have to build more code as workarounds for the abstraction. Or you end up building more duplicate logic because you can't see where the logic is. And so you end up building more duplicate logic for, I guess, large swaths of code. Okay, so I'm actually going to put an Amazon link in my documentation. That seems kind of weird, right? But here's the reason. Because these FIDO keys, like what the heck is a FIDO key? Which kind of FIDO key? What generation of FIDO key? What are we talking about? So I'm actually going to put a link to this on Amazon in the documentation I'm creating. And yes, it will be an affiliate link. In fact, I'll get one to you too if you want it. There you go, in case you want it. By the way, how's everybody else doing that's popping in and out? I see people are coming and going. Hopefully you enjoy your time here, or whatever. It actually doesn't, you don't have to enjoy your time. I'm not the arbiter of good times. Do what you want with your time. Actually, I kind of am the arbiter of good times. I take it back. I do take that back. I am the arbiter of good times. Please see me afterwards. Please see me after class. Dang it. I just accidentally... There we go. Okay, where... Okay, there it is. They don't sell it in blue anymore? Really? Come on, man. Huh. I really wanted a picture of the blue one. Or a link to the blue one, but they don't make the blue one anymore. You know, these are in a way, these are actually a perfect product because you can't resell them. But the reason you can't resell them is actually a good reason, which is that it's literally an identity for you. Once you use it, once you open the plastic, it's not returnable, it's not resellable. Well, it might be returnable, but it's not resellable because, yeah, then somebody could, you know, you'd have to go around the web and log out of everything. Somebody could pop up and say, hey, do you want to log in? And you just put in your thing and, you know, it's like, you can't resell it. So it's actually, but the value that it creates is what makes it not resellable. And so this actually is aligned. This is good. It's too bad they can't make quadrillions of dollars. All right. So did I send the link to Jonathan Blow? I'm going to add it to Creeds of Craftsmanship right now. All right, I'm updating that. I'm going to go inside and have a muffin and go to bed. I didn't get much done. I feel kind of meh about it because I was going to have some billable hours. You know, when I'm taking time for a 15-minute rant during a 3-hour session, billable hours. When I spend 2.5 hours ranting out of a 2-hour session, but yeah, this is stuff that I like. The goal that I'm trying to achieve actually is for work, but I've gotten like half an hour of billable time in. on the stream. Unfortunately, most of the time when I'm doing billable work on the stream, and I'm in a good, good rhythm, I don't let myself get too distracted with the chat and the rants and all that. But in this particular case, but I enjoyed it. Was it worth all the money I lost along the way? Nobody knows. All right. Just a second. I'll look back over. I think I saw a little movement over there in the corner of my eye. All right. So I added Preventing the Collapse of Civilization, which I've subtitled We're Losing Our Tech, onto the Creeds of Craftsmanship list. There's so many good talks on here. I want to watch a lot of them again. The Raven DB one was really good. Man. Okay, we're... okay. So one more thing down. All right, I'm just not there yet. Just not there yet. I am starting to feel a little sluggish. It's pity. I just finally am able to refocus. My eyes are starting to droop, and I'm having hunger pangs. So, yeah, Preventing the Collapse of Civilization is a very interesting talk because he talks about lost technologies, and I've watched a ton of these shows. A lot of the lost technologies are in Ancient Aliens, which I watch for fun, not because I'm, I hope that most people that watch Ancient Aliens are watching it as an informational comedy, kind of like you watch The Daily Show, But anyway, there's an iron alloy we have no idea how to reproduce that does not rust. It's not stainless steel, but it's stainless iron, I guess. There's a pillar. There's one pillar that's made out of this stuff that's so many thousands of years old. Whoever the artisans were, nobody knows, but it's iron, and it has not rusted in thousands of years. There's the Baghdad battery. I think is actually more controversial. I'm not sure whether it belongs in that category or not. I kind of want to say it does, but I don't have enough good information about it. There's also this cup that has nanotechnology in it. By nano, we mean particles that are so small that no one with, like, actual nanotechnology, not buzzword nanotechnology, but actually, as in there's particles of gold in the cup that the way the molecules form, they reflect light in a particular way, but they only refract light in that particular way when they are dispersed in the material at nano size. When they're really at this molecular level, the gold is not bonded together into chunks. It's not that it's thin. It's not electrolysis. And again, nobody knows how these cups were made, but they're green if you look at them through one direction. If the light passes through one way, they're green. If the light passes the other way, they're red. It's the gold that does it. We know how it happens, but I don't believe that we know how to recreate it. And again, the artisans who did it, they are lost to time. And there's just a bunch of other things like that he brings up. And then he starts talking about how we are also, there's technology that we could produce 10 years ago that we can't produce now. And he gives some examples that when you think about it, it seems, oh, well, it's not a big deal. But if you think about it a little bit deeper, you might think, actually, maybe it kind of is a big deal. So there's hardware that we don't know how to manufacture anymore. There's software that it's difficult to say we don't know how to make it, but no one has. And it would be like those cups. At the time that the cups were created, maybe they were always meant to be one of a kind, maybe not. But in any case, somebody knew how to make them, but they stopped making them. And the knowledge was lost. And a lot of our software, despite the fact that so much of it is open source and this, that, and the other, if nobody can prove that they can make the software, then does it actually exist? Or has the fundamental capability been lost? Because you have to prove not just, oh, I think I could do it. I think I know how to do it. I think I remember the process. You'd have to actually repeat the process to prove that you do know how the process works. And with modern software, especially modern web development, the only thing we can prove is that nothing works. We say, oh, well, if we had more time, if we had more money, if we had more this, if we had more that. And I agree with him that I don't think that it's those things. I think that we're losing out of our collective consciousness the ability to create things that work. We're losing the fundamental ability. And I think that may very well be true. All right, conditional media available. Let's see if we can get, what's the simple version on this? Okay. Okay. So I'm not quite sure what we say about this. Public key credential. Turns a promise, results true if conditional mediation is available. This is so weird. It's weird that that's a promise. I'm trying to understand why. Either the browser has the capability or it doesn't. Either the operating system has the capability or it doesn't. And the browser doesn't need to... It would be fine if this were blocking, because the browser only needs to know once, right? Or maybe that's not true. Maybe the operating system goes into different modes, but yeah, we don't really have multi-user systems anymore, but maybe there's something about operating system modes that could be enabled, but a person could do something to cause it not be enabled, so it needs to check with the operating system every time. Certainly shouldn't need to check with the browser every time. It seems like this is the kind of thing that you kind of put in state and then fail if you get it wrong, rather than having to always have an asynchronous process. Obviously, not obviously, but the get as described here, obvious because of the way it's described here, that one, yes, it has to wait because that's actually part of user interaction, whether known or unknown. But this is conditional mediation available. That doesn't really make sense. All right, I want to go look at this demo that they have again. So we'll do this again tomorrow, and I'll get further. Register new credential. User ID, AJ. Register. I would love to know what is going on behind here. Error. Interesting. Interesting that it returns an error. Because I thought it said in the other part of the documentation it didn't return error. Register new credential. AJ. AJ. Let's see if we can make this in a way that I can see what's going on behind there. Can I get the inspector? Can I move this down? So this says if the user clicks out of the way, this is supposed to be, this passkey will only be saved, save another way, iCloud keychain. Okay, let's try that. Oh, wait a minute. Now this is news. Now how did we get to here? All right, let's do it. Okay, so it's a loading spinner. All right. So that's what I wanted. Okay, save another way will only be saved on this device. All right, so we got something going on here. We got something here that wasn't here before. Oh, interesting. So I can use a password. All right. All right, so I'm learning things. Okay, so we can click save another way. Your Brave profile. Huh. That's weird. Okay, so we need to actually chop this down to about 300. We need to chop that down to about 150. Actually makes this, let's make this 275. So 275. This one will also be 275. Wait, so this one right here, 150? Yeah, I'll take it to 200. Interesting. Very interesting. Cool. Yeah, so I'm learning all sorts of things. All right. Seems like, I should have already gotten some demo code working, but we'll get there. We'll get there. I think tomorrow I'll try to hunker down and actually get to the demo fairly quickly. But this is stuff like I don't know. It's hard to say, is taking this path of learning rather than going to direct experimentation. Is it a pre-optimization? Am I wasting time learning when I could be, from reading rather than just, okay, let's copy and paste and get to it? I think I'm actually slightly leaning towards the edge of, no, this is good, because the reason for it is because I did try to copy and paste and nothing worked as I expected. I do have a little demo, right? There's no passkey presentation here. There's no password there. And then when I refresh the page and I try to do it, then in the console, I get an error. So obviously I did not have enough information yet to do this minimal example. So I think, yeah, it actually, it checks out. It checks out. Makes sense. Okay. All right. But I think I have enough understanding that I can probably get the demo working. So one thing I didn't understand is that the get is actually more similar to a promised event, which I love that model. I love that model. That's the model that Go uses. That's the whole concept of a channel, more or less. You're waiting on a channel for asynchronous data to come through. I think that I would love to see the experiment of a modern front-end framework. We've never had a front-end framework that actually uses JavaScript well. And there are, the one thing that I can say is that components suck. Because as with so many things in JavaScript, that the people just didn't get in the same room and talk about what they were doing together, or at least didn't come to any form of consensus other than, well, you do your thing and I'll do my thing. Because components don't support async await, and they hard require classes. You can't just use regular objects or even prototypes. There is a really funky hack to get around it, but it's so disturbing. Yeah. So, but that aside, I would love to see a modern framework that has top-level error handling, number one, and that I mean, the only way that you can get that, I believe, is by using async await. And the only way that you can get that is by, basically, you need something very similar to what they're doing here, where you create promise streams or promises that you can get over and over and over again for an event. Say you want to listen for a click, and you listen for a click in a loop rather than in a function. And then you can, I've done this with promises themselves before in one product that I was building, but you can have very beautiful flow with promises. And now that await is supported everywhere, I believe that you can have very beautiful flow with await if you don't disregard promises entirely. Well, maybe even if you do, but supports conditional mediation. So this is interesting. I actually don't want to have this, but I do want to know why. I want to try with and without. Normalize credentials list, reg options, exclude credentials. Do we really want to exclude credentials? What does this mean? Exclude credentials. All right, so I think this is the... Okay, cancel registration signal. I think we need to know what this is. Because he may be using some trickery to figure that out. That may not be something that's actually available as part of the API. And I don't know what this means. This looks like black magic to me. Is the cancel registration signal being included as part of the object? I don't know what that means. That is very strange syntax to me. I'm a JavaScript genius, not a magician. Okay, there's a signal, cancel registration signal. Is that a symbol? All symbols. It's a symbol. So I'm a little confused because what is this? What are we doing here? Is this like some sort of Uber deconstructor? Maybe. Ah, okay. I highly disagree with the use of functions like this. Here's the reason. Key, value. Wrong. This is the key. This is the value. So it's taking from the key, cancel registration signal, and assigning to the value. No, it's taking from the value and assigning to the key. What? I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. This is weird. I cannot read this kind of code. This is why I don't do this kind of code. All right. Relying party name, so it's arbitrary. Relying party ID. Okay. Attestation, none. That's interesting. No attestation. Attestation. I wonder what that means. We'll figure that out later. This is, yeah, I mean, you thought OIDC was prepared for the apocalypse? Meet WebAuthn, folks. Okay, this is different. Off defaults. Yeah. So this code is hard no-go for me. Because this violates that principle I was talking about earlier. Look, not only basically there is one exception to the rule that I would make just because of historical reasons, that it's very difficult to do things otherwise. But you should never have double closing parentheses in your code. If you have double closing parentheses anywhere in your code, that is a hard code smell. Because he's taking advantage of all of these shortcuts. And, you know, he's got ternaries, he's got this thing, which I'm not sure what that's doing, and I'm not sure if it means something different when you're putting something, because now this is an expression that gets evaluated, and then if, I don't know. That's a bit too much for me. So I think somewhere else a signal is created. But the signal gets renamed, and now it's called cancel registration signal. And then it comes over here. I don't know whether or not, what might be happening is it might be creating an object that only, no, because I don't see the object thing around here. Oh, okay, wait, here it is. Yes, it's creating an object. So this right here is creating and unwrapping. So it's got a ternary that creates an object that unwraps the object. That's what's happening here. So this is a no-go. This is what I was talking about, where I have more lines of code, but I have less code. Because for me, oh, that's interesting he chose to use var there. I wonder what his rule on var versus let versus, because there he's got let. I wonder if that was a copy pasta, or if that, I wonder how that, because sometimes people use var intentionally. Oh, and then look at this. Look at this at the very end here. So this object's being unwrapped, but it's being assigned from this object. So all of this is assigned from this, but then you also have these. Yeah, no, this is a no-go for me. Yeah, that's if I rewrote this code, it seems like it would have to be much larger, but I actually will end up rewriting this code, and almost guaranteed it will end up being smaller. Well, that's not almost guaranteed. The whole, well, I won't go into that. I think that Gitify is perfectly capable of writing reasonably well crafted code. And so my code, in comparison to his, probably would just be longer, but it would be definitely easier to read. He's taking advantage of too many cool things. I think he's gone back on this since, but I remember when AI was coming out and it wasn't popular yet. So he was using, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong, he was using tab 9. And he had said something to the effect of, I'm changing the way that I write my code so that I can be more aligned with the way the AI wants to write the code, and I'll be more effective. So he was being a little bit of a transhumanist in that situation. And I think he's gone back on that since, but this is one of those things where I do not believe. I guess here's the thing. This is the plain and simple truth. And I've said this before. We are not going to create a God. We are not. We are not going to create a God. This goes against the natural order. Higher order entities exercise our agents over lower order entities. But lower order entities do not exercise authority over higher order entities, and a lower order entity doesn't create a higher order entity. This is true in a lot of ways, so I used very abstract language, but think about it like this. Dogs don't get together and command humans. I mean, sure, there can be a pack of dogs that does something, but no matter how many dogs get together, they're not smarter than a human. All of the dog wisdom in the world combined is not smarter than a human. All of the human wisdom in the world cannot create a god. A god is a higher order being. And depending on how you look at it, they're mythical, which so it just seems silly. Like, you can create a movie, you can't create a god. But there's a story in the Bible of the Ten Commandments, and Moses goes up on the mount and he receives actually the full law of God, a special law that has never been revealed. And he comes down and he sees that the people, while Moses was up trying to receive the true law of God, the people built a golden calf because they needed to worship. I don't know quite how to articulate the Bible story. You can read it yourself and draw your own conclusion. It's only a few verses long. But while he was gone in the mountain, they created a golden calf to worship and called it God. When Moses came down, he broke the tablets that he had come down with. He had written down God's true law. And then he goes back up to the mountain and he receives the law that his people were able to accept. Because the idea is that they had degraded in the few days that he had gone up into the mountains to the point where they were not capable of keeping God's true law, because just in those few days they created something, their finest artistry, and that's where this tie-in is. It's their finest artistry, their best work. They created a god for themselves. And so they were not ready for the true law, and instead they got the Ten Commandments, which are things that any knucklehead should know, like don't kill, don't steal, don't cheat with someone else's wife. Like things that, like very, very basic things. And then, but that's the age that we're in. We're in the age of gods. We are looking at the technology that we've created with our own hands, the artistry that we've created with our own hands, and we are creating gods for ourselves to worship. And if you listen to any of these big investors talking about the $300 billion that we need to put in AI, and how despite, climate change, that we need to actually reinvest more energy than we spend on the entire American populace just on AI. Like, it's, and this is kind of a far leap from what I was saying before, but there's just like, we see this I can't say the word, this artisanal quality to some of our technology, and then we begin to worship it. And this is a far cry from, I'm not making this direct accusation with Gitify. I'm just saying that there's this quality of like, oh, this is cool, this is enlightening, this is, we start to do things that are obviously silly. Like, I think it should be obvious that you shouldn't be creating, I don't know, an object that unwraps itself, that rewraps itself. It's like, anyway, just like it's obvious that I should already have the demo by now, Instead, I created a god of talking to myself. So, oh well, there's that. It's happening, and it will not stop. It's so exponential. The investment? I think you're right. The amount of money and energy they're willing to put towards it is not stopping until we find out that we're all dead. Until one day we wake up dead. All right, expected challenge. Dot challenge. Yeah, I don't know where this stuff is coming from. There's so many layers of object wrapping, but this was auth defaults, right? Up here? No, that's reg defaults. Okay, so we have a register phase and we have an auth phase. And do these use the same thing? No, I guess register is you want to create something new that you haven't seen before. And auth. Okay, so what happens if I... let's see if I can make this demo again. Let's say register new credential, but I actually already have this credential. Okay. Oh, okay, credential already exists. Okay. Oh, so when I close the browser, does it go away? Is this a session thing? Register new credential. Oh, this is not good. Interesting. Passkey, passkey, passkey. Use a different passkey. Okay, I see where that's working. Okay. All right. Okay, I see more of how this is working out. I'm understanding this a little better now. All right. Okay, well, I'm going to go to bed. And I'm going to approach this with some fresh eyes probably tomorrow afternoon because I'm going to work on a motorcycle with a friend. So maybe evening. I don't really like this. Internal metadata only. I don't know why that is. Yeah, I don't like using many language features of the language. I could see an edge case where you absolutely need to use one because there's a particular characteristic of it that just won't work without it. But I think most of it is just, you know, people taking things that are simple and making them complicated. Define property is so cool, but what do you need to do with it? And again, I'm not necessarily criticizing Gitify here. I'm talking out loud. Like, what purpose does this serve? I got a comment, internal metadata only. But what is it for then? Is it because we don't want it JSON stringifiable? Is it because when we pass it through somewhere else? So, like, what is this defaults thing? Oops. Okay, reg defaults creates reg defaults. Normalize credential list. Okay, so there's at least 2 places where we're doing this thing. But I want to know, why did the... Okay. All right, let me close this out here. Oh, or am I opening it back up? I'm going to open it back up. Yeah, I'm going to open this back up. Registered credentials, none. So where's registered credentials coming from? Oh, what? Okay. I think this is the peak of humankind with the internet on our first century with it. Well, that's what Jonathan Blow is kind of saying. I think that's something that I am. Yeah, I think we're headed for collapse. I'm not sure what to make of it, but we're at the top of the pyramid scheme. Well, to me, I think this looks a lot cleaner than most of the code that I look at. But I say this just about any time. Whatever. It doesn't matter. If you're not doing early returns, you got to rethink your life choices. That's interesting. So if it ever gets to here, WebAuthn is not supported. How are we supposed to understand that? If supports WebAuthn, oh, does it return? Oh, it returns this entire object. Yeah, so I won't do that because you can't tell where the return is. The return just kind of gets lost. So what I'll do is let result equals and then return result down at the bottom. Because we want to see, because it's important to understand the control flow. It's important to be able to see, I look down at the bottom of the if, I'm like, oh, how's all this stuff still going on? It doesn't fit on the screen. But, so, yeah, I just code like an idiot. And that's what makes me a genius. All right. Well, like I said, I'm going to go so that tomorrow I can take a look at this again and kind of figure it out. And I am going to give myself a little bit of time here. I think this the first little bit and the last little bit, I think warranted. There was actual valuable work there. So, won't clock. Much time. I'll clock a little time there. All right, we're getting there. We're getting there. Okay. Adios, folks. Have a good one. It looks clean, just not my style on some things. Okay. Have a great sleep, AJ. We'll come to the stream tomorrow. If we have one. Yeah. I'm not 100% sure if we're going to have a stream tomorrow or not, but I'd like to get one done. Let's see. All right, but I'm a good tired, so